describe where we are, where Earth
Yes.
is in the galaxy and the solar system, or at least in the solar system, and what humans look like, and our DNA, things like that. And if they had gotten a hold of that, they might have assumed that humans were pretty savvy about genetics
True.
and astronomy and all the things that they're interested in, apparently.
And it was recorded on a gold disc also.
Yeah,
So
right.
they knew that we had gold.
Yes.
And which,
Way to
gee,
go. Way to
let's
go,
put out
Earth.
everything about us to people we don't know
Right.
and see if that works out well.
Yes. How
You
is
know,
that working out for us,
so
Earth?
far we're
Where is
so
my
far we are
hovercraft?
a little bit back.
Right? Heck, where's my solar panels on the roof? I know we can get those now, but come on. They should be part and parcel of every new construction.
Yes, they should.
Come on.
But
That's my opinion. I could be wrong.
I don't think so. But it makes a lot more sense than having all these wind fields built on some farmer's land, and that energy goes to Canada. We don't use that energy. So why are we even bothering? Let them build their own wind things, right? But
Why are we been bothering with wind or solar? Because one of the first discoveries on these felled craft, according to sources I've read, and possibly the subject for a future book, and other people have written on this extensively, one of the first things that became obvious to the U.S. military was that these craft were completely non-conventional, not like anything we had on Earth. It took them a long time to figure out the anti-gravitational propulsion system, anti-grav. What mystified them after that was that, guess what? There's a psycho-emotional component to flying a UFO, it turns out.
absolutely.
This is what I've read and heard from people. The pilot is integrated into the craft, integrated through a skin-tight suit and what we would think of from Star Trek as a neural net that connects perhaps through Wi-Fi or fiber optics to the actual ship construction, and that the pilot thinks a destination. This is from a report of a human test pilot who was one of the first to test a newly engineered on Earth, reverse engineered UFO craft into a U.S. manufactured craft. This test pilot was told, just think where you want to go. Think that you're flying. So he got up okay. And then he kind of freaked out and lost his train of consciousness and crash landed. He didn't know how to land. And as soon as he thought, I don't know how to land, he crashed.
There you go.
And that broke both his legs, and he was honorably discharged. And you can find that video on YouTube, I'm sure, should you care to check that out. I'm not making this stuff up. Now, whether these are credible witnesses, that you have to decide. These people sound very credible to me, and I let my psychic self tell me what's hokum or bunk and what's genuine and true. And it isn't all genuine and true. There are hoaxers out there.
There are hoaxers.
But I think a good majority of the hoaxers are government employees, CIA,
Disinformation
NSA.
specialists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We know about these black operations that are bleeding trillions of dollars over the decades out of our economy, which explains why, basically, as a nation, we're impoverished. Why aren't we thriving after all these decades of being a world leader in mass production? What's going on? The money's gone. We'll never see it again. Donald Rumsfeld called it the day before 9/11, 2001, when the Twin Towers came down. The day before, he said $3.2 trillion is missing from a Pentagon audit. They cannot account for it. They could account for it. They weren't going to account for it because these black operations are literally and technically and legally unaccountable. They're above and outside the law. Oh, it makes me mad.
It makes me mad too. Well, then, fairly recently, the State Department also experienced a grossly negligent. The figure would make you think it was grossly negligent, and their shortfall of their, accounting. And we are about 20 seconds out from a break because this is such a subject we are going to have to touch base because, nobody's supposed to be above the law here, right?
So true.
So true.
So true, y'all.
But, in actuality, not so much. But we'll be back in 3 minutes. Y'all enjoy this.
You are listening to WPHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk radio.
Hello there, welcome back. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience, with my guest, Jean Broida, and we are having the most interesting conversations. I just hate having to stop for a second, but we were talking about the gentleman, the test pilot, who was flying the reverse engineered craft, and when he realized he didn't know how to land it, he crashed it. Right,
and broke both legs. Poor guy.
So awful. God,
got an honorable discharge though, and he was, he had signed a non-disclosure agreement, and he waited 50 years to his credit.
Well, that is a pretty good thing, but if the subject matter, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because you do deal more with the people who are under these, but if something is classified as a top secret project, and you have a 50-year non-disclosure agreement, you still are not supposed to, under penalty of law, disclose. Is that not the case? If it's still classified?
I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to answer that.
Okay.
I believe if there is actually a time limit that, again, I'm not a lawyer, but if a contract says it has a time limit, and the time limit then expires, the contract would no longer be binding. However, these government non-disclosure agreements may not have a time limit per se.
I am not aware of anything that is a top secret clearance expiring until the status of the information changes. So I am a paralegal. So that's why I was just curious.
Oh, I did not know that.
Really? Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to me when I hear all that, because I'm like, well, it is cool that you waited your time period, but if you know that your project is still classified top secret, you still can't talk about it.
Well,
And
here's the deal, Kat, with these UFO people. I'm talking about military insiders, all the way from infantry to highest officerships. Apparently, being exposed to UFOs and not being allowed to talk about it really messes you up.
I could see
emotionally and psychologically. It's that in and of itself is a traumatic experience. And so what we're getting now are deathbed confessions.
Right.
And we're also getting an encouraging wave of people who, after 50 years, have transpired since their event. For example, things happened in the 1950s, 1960s. It's been 50 years. They are thinking, you know what? I heard Paul Hellyer, former Minister of Defense of Canada, say that UFO documents crossed his desk. He'd never heard of it before, but he saw proof that Canada had UFO reports, the United States had UFO reports, every nation in the world has UFO reports. It's real, it's true. He said it bent his mind. It bent his mind. Well, these people in the U.S. military, their minds are bent because they can't talk about this stuff. It's tragic, frankly. And for all the time and money spent covering up this truth, what if the propaganda machine had been enculturating the people who were supposedly too immature and ignorant back in the 1940s and 50s to accept the truth of UFOs? What if the propaganda effort had been spent not debunking and discouraging the truth, but leading people toward it? And some people ask, is that what's happening now? Is that what's happening now? 10 years after ancient archaeology's been on the airwaves, are we the people being conditioned to accept UFOs as a possible truth? The Pope saying aliens exist or whatever, he'd baptize them. Crazy stuff, crazy talk, whereas other people are saying, insiders are saying, yeah, I worked shoulder to shoulder with 4 different kinds of alien beings. Some were like humans and some weren't.
I may have a little bit of an answer for those questions. When I was at the Alien Con, the most recent one, I've covered both of them, but this most recent one, there's a NASA employee, a current NASA employee who is a double PhD physicist, who is just as interesting and intelligent and fascinating to listen to as anyone I've ever met, who is on Ancient Aliens. And I questioned that in one of the panels. So I may never get to talk to him again.
Oh.
But he is very kind, and he did, connect with me after all things were said and done and everybody was home. But there's a NASA employee talking on Ancient Aliens about Tesla and about the different energies. He is working on all kinds of things. And I just raised my hand in that panel and I said, "You still draw a check from our government?" And he said, "I do." I said, "Why do they let you do this? They don't want anybody else talking about this. Why do they let you do this? I mean, are you here to be a part of this disclosure process that Ancient Aliens is? Or are you here, disinformation or what? It's just bizarre that you're allowed to do this." And you still
What was the answer?
He just kind of looked at me funny.
He didn't answer.
He just said, "I'm here." And I said, "Okay." I wasn't trying to be offensive. I just thought that was a great question. Why are you
I think it's a great question too. I wish he'd answered.
Well, he just kind of, I think that he was taken aback because I think he is part of disclosure. because he is he's brilliant, and he